Good morning, everyone. I am so excited to be at church today because this week, as Mark said, we are having a special celebration of mission. Do you guys know what mission is? Well, it's a word we as Christians use to describe going out and telling others all about Jesus. Here at Life Anglican Church, we support families who decide to move to a whole new country to help share the good news about Jesus with the people there. But mission isn't just something that happens overseas, it also happens here. We run the Life Kids holiday program, Quack, every year to help share Jesus with all the kids in the areas that we live. But we didn't get to run Quack last year, and this year it was online. Doing mission and sharing Jesus with others looks really different at the moment, doesn't it? Everyone else seems so far away, and it's not as easy talking to people through a screen all the time. So does that mean we give up? Of course not. And I'm going to tell you a story today to help encourage you guys to not give up doing mission for Jesus. Today's story is a true story about a 9-year-old girl called Mary. Mary lived in the Welsh countryside nearly 300 years ago. She lived with her family in a little farm cottage and they were very poor. Mary had to do extra chores to help keep their farm going. She had to help feed and water the animals, keep the house clean, and cook meals. She worked really hard and was really busy. But every Sunday morning, Mary and her family would walk up to their little local church and listen to their pastor read from the Bible and tell them about Jesus. Mary loved hearing about Jesus. One day, she walked up to the front of the church and caught a glimpse of the Bible on the pastor's stand. There were gold squiggles on the front and lots of other dark squiggles neatly all over the pages inside. Mary wondered how on earth their pastor could make sense of all those squiggles. So from that day on, Mary decided she wanted to learn how to read, in the hope that she could one day read the Bible for herself. Now, Mary knew that she could ask God for anything, so she started to pray every day that God would help her learn how to read so she could read his special book. She prayed and prayed and prayed. Then, on Sunday morning at church, the pastor announced that there was to be a brand new school opening in their village. Mary was so excited. Finally, she could learn how to read. But Mary had to work twice as hard now, making sure she got all her jobs done at home so that she could go to school. She then had to work hard at school to learn how to read. But Mary didn't mind. She was so excited to think that she was getting closer and closer to being able to read the Bible for herself. When Mary had finally learned how to read, her pastor asked her if she would like to read the Bible for church on Sunday. What do you think Mary said? Of course she said yes. She was over the moon. Sunday morning came, and though she was a little nervous to read aloud in front of all the people there, she took a deep breath and gave it a go. The squiggles were no longer squiggles, they were words. And after the words, there were more words. Then there were sentences, then paragraphs, and then whole stories right there in front of her. How special those stories about God were. Mary's parents were so proud of her. And all of a sudden, Mary had another idea. What about she gets herself a Bible of her own? That way, she could read about God whenever she likes. But Mary's parents shook their heads sadly when she asked them and said, "We don't have enough money. We are so sorry, Mary." Mary was sad for a little while, but was still determined. She must have a Bible of her own. So Mary started to do even more work to earn money so that she could buy one of her own. But she didn't make a lot, so she had to keep on working. It took Mary 6 whole years to earn enough money to buy a Bible of her own. And by that time, she was 15 years old. Mary was so excited. But when she went into town, no one sold any Bibles there. So she asked around and discovered that there was a man who sold Bibles in the next village. But that was 25 miles away. And boys and girls, that's as far as walking from the Sydney Opera House all the way to Palm Beach in the Northern Beaches. So what do you think Mary did? Well, even though she didn't have a horse, and bikes and cars hadn't even been invented yet, Mary decided she would walk all the way to the next village to buy a Bible. It would have taken her around 9 hours to walk that far, But she lived near a mountain, so maybe it took her even longer. And she did it all by herself too. When Mary finally got to the town, she looked for the house of a man called Mr. Thomas Charles and knocked on his front door. As soon as he opened the door, Mary blurted out, "Hi, Mr. Charles. I've walked 25 miles to get here. I've saved up for 6 years to buy a Bible. I've got the money here. You can count it if you like. Please, please, can I have a Bible?" Mr. Charles was astonished. 25 miles? 6 years? For a Bible? He had never met someone so excited for a Bible before. After Mr. Charles had given Mary a bite to eat, he got her a Bible. It was brand new. It felt like gold in Mary's hands. Never had she held something so precious in all her life. She thanked him, and the next day started the long journey home. When she finally got back home, everyone was so excited to see Mary and her Bible. But you know, boys and girls, the story didn't end there. You remember Mr. Charles? Well, he never forgot Mary, and he couldn't stop thinking that surely there were many more girls and boys out there longing for Bibles of their own. So Mr. Charles and some others got together and formed the British and Foreign Bible Society in 1804. And that society is still around today, working hard to help the Bible be accessible to everyone around the world. Boys and girls, sometimes it seems like we can't do much for Jesus, especially now whilst we are in lockdown. Mary probably didn't think she was doing much for Jesus, just getting a Bible for herself. But her faith in Jesus is what inspired Mr. Charles to help others. God worked through Mary's faith in him. And God can work through your faith too. Your faith in Jesus can even inspire the grown-ups. Jesus said to his disciples in Matthew chapter 9, verses 37 to 38, when he saw the crowd of people following him were sick and hurting, "A large crop is in the fields, but there are only a few workers. Ask the Lord in charge of the harvest to send out workers to bring it in." This was just before he sent out the disciples on mission to share the good news about him. There are so many people who don't know the good news about Jesus. Jesus inspired the disciples to go out and tell others about him. We have his word inspiring us today in the Bible to go out and tell others about him. Sometimes mission looks like going overseas to tell people in another country, and sometimes mission looks like showing others how much you love Jesus at home. So boys and girls, even in lockdown, we aren't going to give up telling others about who Jesus is and what he has done for us.